And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Tuesday morning, flying weather, IFR North Slope Arctic Coast, VFR here in the interior, and some VFR Eastern Bering Sea from the Fox Islands up across Nunivak Island, Macoriac, and then marginal VFR from Atka westward and to the east here for the North Gulf Coast, IFR into Prince William Sound and extending into northern Panhandle with marginal VFR all the way down to Dixon Entrance. And then for the afternoon, area of IFR works first northwest and then westward here into Prince William Sound and up into the Copper River Basin, though, but marginal VFR for the Matanuska Valley and then the Susitna Valley, Cook Inlet, on down to Kamishak, Kachemak Bay, VFR, Bristol Bay VFR, and some IFR still up over the North Slope and Eastern Arctic Coast, IFR Central Alaska Range here on up into the Upper Tanana Valley, actually to the Yukon Flats. And out west, still pretty good, looks like VFR all day for the Fox Islands into the Alaska Peninsula. Marginal VFR here along the southwest coast, extending up into the Bering Strait, and marginal VFR, Adak, Atka, and then some IFR over the far western Bering Sea. And that area shifts eastward a little bit on Wednesday morning. Northern Bering Sea now IFR right up across the Seward Peninsula into the Yukon Delta coast and all the way up to the north or the northwest coast here. Some IFR over the eastern North Slope and a little bit now diminishing here along the eastern border there from about Eagle up in toward Old Crow. Northern Panhandle IFR, IFR along the coast and then in toward Dixon Entrance. VFR, Southern Alaska, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay. And for the afternoon, VFR here across Southern Alaska and even the east side here into the central interior, VFR, IFR along the southeast coast and right along the outer coastline there with marginal VFR over the inside waters, VFR Kodiak Island, and some IFR, pretty good area here from the Kuskokwim Delta coast out over the central Bering Sea and then southward here across Adak and Atka. And for the passes tomorrow, Anatuvik and Adigan, VFR to start, becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, rainy VFR, same forecast for windy VFR. And Isabel, VFR as well. Mentasta, looking good with VFR flying conditions. Tanita, though, marginal VFR, and then Portage, IFR, especially on the eastern entrance. Chilkoot and White looking a little marginal. And then for freezing levels, 6,000 feet here over the central interior eastward, and then 4,000 to 5,000 feet over southern interior, about 6,000 for the Panhandle. Cooler air out here over the eastern Bering Sea all the way south of the eastern Aleutians there at 2,000 feet, and then back up to 6,000 feet out to the west. And not much in the way of icing. A couple areas here way out to the west, western Bering Sea, and up into the St. Lawrence Island area. Otherwise, the heavy icing will be coming into the southeast coast here. Look for considerable moderate rime icing with light to isolated moderate rime icing working westward into Prince William Sound. And the jet stream for tomorrow, south of the Panhandle here at this elevation at 33,000 feet. Pretty light for the Gulf of Alaska in the southeast part of the state, south-southwest 70 knots over the central north slope. And then almost call it an Arctic jet here up to 115 knots there along the Russian coast, turning northerly at 80 knots over the eastern Aleutians. And then for the 9,000 foot wind flow pattern here, north-northeast, 45 knots eastern Aleutians, westerlies 50 knots over the northern Bering Sea. Light here over the interior. And the Panhandle looking a little windy here, up to 45 knots there, central and southern southeast coast. Stronger winds blowing in across just south of the Queen Charlottes. But then at 3,000 feet, we've got 50-knot winds here right along the south coast of the Panhandle. Otherwise, light Gulf of Alaska into the eastern interior. Westerlies 30 to as high as 50 knots for the eastern Arctic coast there, with that low just to the north. And then out west here, we've got 30-knot winds along the Kuskokwim Delta coast and picking up to about 35 to 45 knots there for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, again out of the north. Southwest flow here way out to the west there towards Shimia and Attu at about 45 knots. Turbulence, light to isolated moderate turbulence for the western Aleutians out there with those higher winds. Eastern Arctic coast, moderate turbulence, considerable moderate turbulence there on the east side, especially for small aircraft, and also for the Alaska Peninsula, pretty choppy there. And then moderate turbulence here working slowly north and northwestward there as that next storm approaches the Panhandle.